Good morning, guys. It's time to start a new novel. We're going to read a mystery. And in case you're not sure, a mystery is a story in which the character is focused on solving a crime or unusual problem. Mystery texts are usually fictional. And so the mystery that we're reading today is from the series A to Z Mysteries. And we're going to read The Absent Author by Ron Roy. We're going to be reading chapters 1 and 2 today. While you are reading, I want you to think about what we are studying this week. We are focused on character traits, which are words that we use to describe our characters. Character traits are the details about characters that show what they are like. It's kind of like how you are in the inside. So during the read aloud, I want you to start to think about the characters you meet in chapters 1 and 2. Then I want you to ask yourself, what does the character say, think, feel, or does in the story? Here is a cute little anchor chart with all different types of character traits. Now this anchor chart will be posted in the classroom as well as in your class notebook. You definitely do not have to memorize all of these character traits, but it is a reference you can use when you are trying to decide what character trait your character has. Chapter 1. Please, Josh, Dink said. If you come with me today, I'll owe you one. Just name it. Anything. Dink's full name was Donald David Duncan, but no one in Green Lawn ever called him that, except his mother, when she meant business. Josh Pinto grinned at his best friend. Anything? He raised his mischievous green eyes toward the ceiling of Dink's bedroom. Let's see. What do you have that I want? He scratched his head. I know. I'll take Loretta. Dink tossed a pillow at Josh. When I said anything, I meant anything but my guinea pig. Are you coming with me or not? I have to be at the book nook in 15 minutes. Dink rushed into the bathroom, tucking his shirt into his jeans at the same time. Josh followed him. Now I want you to look at that word rushed. Rushed has an ED on the end. And usually when you see a word with an ED on the end, it means a past tense verb. So that means that's already happened. Standing in front of the mirror, Dink yanked a brush through his thick blonde hair. Well, he asked, are you coming with me? What's so important about this writer guy? Josh asked, sitting on the edge of the bathtub. Dink turned around and pointed his hairbrush. Wallace isn't just some writer guy, Josh. He's the most famous mystery writer in the world. All the kids read his books, except for you. If he's so famous, why's he coming to dinky little Green Lawn? Dink charged, there's that ED again, back into his bedroom. I told you he's coming because I invited him. There's that ED, so invited means he already invited him to come, so it's past tense. I'm scared to death to meet someone so famous. I don't even know what you're supposed to say to an author. Dink dived under his bed and back out again with his sneakers. Please come with me. Josh leaned in the bedroom doorway. Sure, I'll come, you dope. I'm just trying to make you sweat. Usually you're so calm. Dink stared at his friend. You will? Thanks. I can't believe Wallace is really coming. When I wrote and asked him, I never thought he'd say yes. Dink yanked his backpack out of his closet. Pack my books, okay? I'm getting Wallace to sign them all. Josh began pulling Wallace books off Dink's bookshelf. Jeesh, how many do you have? Every one he's written. Dink sat on the floor to tie his sneakers. 23 so far. You should read some of them, Josh. Josh picked out The Poisoned Pond and read the back cover. Hey, cool. It says here that Wallace Wallace lives in a castle in Maine. Wouldn't that be neat? Dink grinned. When I'm a famous writer, you can live in my castle, Josh. No way. When I'm a famous artist, you can live in my castle, down in the basement. Josh picked up the riddle in the river. What's this guy look like? He asked, and how come his picture isn't on any of these books? I wondered about that too, Dink said. I sent him one of my school pictures and asked for one of him. But when I got his letter, there was no picture. He finished tying his laces. Maybe Wallace Wallace just doesn't like having his picture taken. Josh squeezed all 23 books into Dink's pack. He grinned at Dink. Or maybe he's just too ugly. Dink laughed. Gee, Josh, you're ugly, and you love having your picture taken. Ho, ho. Josh picked up his drawing pad. But just because you're my best friend, I'll draw his picture at the bookstore. Dink looked at his watch. Yikes, he said. We have to pick up Ruth Rose in 1 minute. He tore into his bathroom and started brushing his teeth. Now, think about he tore into his bathroom and started brushing his teeth. That's a form of your figurative language that we learned about last week. How'd you get her to come? Josh called. Dink rushed back into his room, wiping toothpaste from his mouth. You kidding? Ruth Rose loves Wallace Wallace's books. Dink slung his backpack over his shoulder. He and Josh hurried next door to 24 Woody Street. Tiger, Ruth Rose's orange cat, was sitting in the sun on the steps. Dink pressed the doorbell. Ruth Rose showed up at the door. As usual, she was dressed all in one color. Today, it was purple. She wore purple coveralls over a purple shirt and had on purple running shoes. A purple baseball cap kept her black curls out of her face. Hey, she said. Then she turned, but before we go to the next page, go ahead and take a look at that picture so you can kind of start to put that movie in your mind about these characters. And screamed into the house. The guys are here, Mom. I'm leaving. Dink and Josh covered their ears. Geez, Ruth Rose, Josh said. I don't know what's louder, your outfit or your voice. Ruth Rose smiled sweetly at Josh. I can't wait until Wallace Wallace signs my book, she said. She held up a copy of The Phantom in the Pharmacy. I wonder if Wallace Wallace will read from the new book he's working on, Dink said. What's the title? Ruth Rose asked. They headed toward the book nook. I don't know, said Dink, but he wrote in his letter that he's doing some of the research while he's here in Connecticut. Dink pulled the letter out of his pocket. He read it out loud while he walked. Dear Mr. Duncan, thank you for your kind letter. I'm so impressed that you've read all of my books. I'm so impressed that you've read all my books. I have good news. I've made arrangements to come to the book nook to sign books. I can use part of my time for research. Thanks for your picture. I'm so happy to finally meet one of my most loyal fans. Short of being kidnapped, nothing will stop me from coming. See you soon, Wallace Wallace. The letter was signed Wallace Wallace in loopy letters. Dink grinned. Pretty neat, huh? Pretty neat, Mr. Duncan, teased Josh. You should have that letter framed, Ruth Rose said. Great idea, Dink said. They passed Howard's barbershop. Howard waved through his window as they hurried by. Come on, Dink urged as he dragged his friends down the street to the book nook. They looked through the window, out of breath. The bookstore was crowded with kids. The book nook's owner, Mr. Paskey, had set up folding chairs. Dink noticed that most of them were already taken. Dink saw Mr. Paskey sitting behind a table. A big white sign on the table said, Welcome, Wallace Wallace. But the chair behind the sign was empty. Dink gulped and stared at the empty seat. Where was Wallace Wallace? Chapter 2. Deke raced into the book nook. Josh and Ruth Rose were right behind him. They found 3 seats behind Tommy Tomko and Eddie Carini. Dink plopped his pack on the floor. The clock over the cash register said 3 minutes after 11. Where is he? Dink whispered to Tommy Tomko. Tommy turned around. Beats me. He's not here yet. And Mr. Paskey looks worried. What's going on? Ruth Rose said. Dink told her and Josh what Tommy had said. Paskey does look pretty nervous, Josh whispered. Mr. Paskey always looks nervous, Dink whispered back, looking around the room. He saw about 30 kids he knew. Miss Davis, Dink's neighbor, was looking at gardening books. Dink checked out the other grown-ups in the store. None of them looked like a famous mystery writer. Mr. Paskey stood up. Boys and girls, welcome to the book nook. Wallace should be here any second. How many of you have books to be autographed? Everyone waved a book in the air. Wonderful! I'm sure Wallace will be happy to know that Green Lawn is a reading town. The kids clapped and cheered. Dink glanced at the clock. 11:05. He swallowed, trying to stay calm. Wallace was late, but it was only by 5 minutes. Slowly, 5 more minutes passed. Dink felt his palms getting damp. Where is Wallace, he wondered. Some of the kids started getting restless. Dink heard one kid say, whenever I'm late, I get grounded. So where is he? Josh asked. Ruth Rose looked at her watch. It's only 10 after, she said. Famous people are always late. Now Dink stared at the clock. The big hand jerked forward, paused, then wobbled forward again. At 11:15, Mr. Paskey stood up again. I don't understand why Wallace is late, he said. Dink noticed that his bald head was shiny with sweat. His bow tie was getting a workout. Mr. Paskey smiled bravely, but his eyes were blinking like crazy through his thick glasses. Shall we give him a few more minutes? The crowd grumbled, but nobody wanted to go anywhere. Ruth Rose started to read her book. Josh opened his sketch pad and began drawing Mr. Paskey. Dink turned and stared at the door. He mentally ordered Wallace to walk through it. You have to come, thought Dink. Ever since he had received Wallace's letter, he'd thought about only one thing, meeting him today. Suddenly, Dink felt his heart skip a beat. The letter! Short of being kidnapped, the letter said, nothing will stop me from coming. Kidnapped! Dink shook himself. Of course, Wallace hadn't been kidnapped. Mr. Paskey stood again, but this time he wasn't smiling. I'm sorry, kids, he said, but Wallace doesn't seem to be coming after all. The kids groaned. They got up, scraping chairs and bumping knees. Mr. Paskey apologized to them as they crowded past, heading for the door. I've read every single one of his books, Dink heard Amy Flower tell another girl. Now I'll probably never meet anyone famous. I can't believe we gave up a soccer game for this, Tommy Tomko muttered. And we know muttered has that ED at the end, so that means it's past tense. So mutter itself means to say something in a low tone. So that means he said something as he passed by, as he was leaving, and it was in the past. Tommy Tomko muttered to Eddie Carini on their way out. Ruth Rose and Josh went next, but Dink remained in his seat. He was too stunned to move. He felt the letter through his jeans, short of being kidnapped. Finally, Dink got up and walked out. Josh and Ruth Rose were waiting for him. What's the matter? Ruth Rose said. You look sick. I am sick, Dink mumbled. And mumbled means to say something quietly. I invited him here. It's all my fault. What's all your fault? Josh asked. This, he said, thrusting the letter into Josh's hands. Wallace has been kidnapped.